investments we make today will benefit future generations. If we don't do it, then they will pay a very, very severe price. When a town runs out of water, you cannot physically ship in enough water to keep a city alive. We used to deal with a flood or a bushfire or drought every 3-4 years. It would be quite a crisis. Today, we deal with 3 or 4 of these a year, almost business as usual. We are benefiting today from sewers and dams and networks that we installed 50 or 100 years ago. It is now our duty to do the same for generations to come.
How would you define water security? What does that mean?
We cannot produce food without water security. The climate is changing. It is rapidly changing because the one certainty we've got is there will be more demand for water as our populations grow.
Francois, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
Yeah, been really looking forward to this conversation. I think of all the episodes we've done, this feels like a very important topic that we're gonna jump into, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity to kind of educate the audience on the importance of what you guys do, some of those issues that are affecting us all around the world. And I think we said we'd start by talking about water security. And before this episode, I just sort of had a look. There's obviously lots of information out there. There's lots of different kind of maps, world maps that talk about water security. What's your overall read, I guess, initially on the kind of global state of water security, and what do you think people need to know?
Well, first of all, we've been providing water, which consists of drinking water. That tends to attract the attention. But equally important is wastewater, because when you flush the toilet, there's a lot of very skilled people taking care of that, ensuring that it gets transported and then treated in a very efficient way and then released into the environment. And a lot of technology being developed in that area. However, all those services have been delivered incredibly efficient by incredibly dedicated and skilled people for many, many decades. But we've been doing it so well that it's almost taken for granted. And we're now getting to the point where a lot of the infrastructure that we use is aging. Climate is changing, so it's not necessarily raining in the same spot that it used to, and storms are getting more intense. And also, we've been underinvesting for some years into our infrastructure. Populations are growing. We need to service that. So all of that leads to a very exciting time in our industry. At the same time, investments we make today will benefit future generations. If we don't do it, then they will pay a very, very severe price. We are benefiting today from sewers and dams and networks that we installed 50 or 100 years ago. It is now our duty to do the same for generations to come.
How would you define water security? What does that mean?
Well, water security, if I step back and you look at a city or a town, when a town runs out of water, you cannot physically ship in enough water to keep a city alive. It is just not possible. The weight, the volume is just too much. Yes, we can provide people bottled water, but we can't keep industry going. We can't provide water to flush the toilets. We cannot provide sufficient of that. And we cannot produce food without water security. So all of that needs to be taken into consideration. And then we need to plan for that, because the one certainty we've got is there will be more demand for water as our populations grow, as more people move into the cities. And the climate is changing. It is rapidly changing. If I take in our own company, when I stepped into this role 10 years ago, we used to deal here in Australia, since our company operates nationally, we used to deal with a flood or a bushfire or drought every 3-4 years. it would be quite a crisis. I'd be personally involved. We would create a incident management room. We'd all manage it successfully together with all the other stakeholders and everyone involved. Today, we deal with 3 or 4 of these a year. It now happens at a level below me. It's become almost business as usual, dealing with a flood or a severe bushfire. The intensity of the floods, the intensity of the rainstorms are becoming much more severe, and it's having quite an effect. That is now the norm, something that we have to manage and deal with, and it will continue. We don't foresee the climate to all of a sudden go back to what it used to be. So we have to invest for that to become more resilient and to have alternatives when it comes to our services that we supply.
And when it comes to water management, I guess my understanding there's kind of 2 main factors, right? There's where the water comes from, and then there's how you actually take care of that, and that's the infrastructure part of and where you guys obviously play a key role. When we look at the map globally, water security maps, and again, I'm sure there's hundreds of different versions of these, but one thing I sort of picked up on here obviously I'm based here in the US, colored orange on most water security maps that we look at, which means medium to sort of high risk. Australia usually around that kind of same mark. What do people need to know in those 2 countries? What does that mean?
Well, I can probably talk more about Australia than the US. Obviously, the US similar. It's a large country.
Yeah.
However, if I come to Australia, we are heading into a drought again. We had a massive drought during we called it the Millennium Drought, around the millennium. When we look at Australia, which is the last continent, when we say the country is in drought, then it means the majority of the country is in drought. Even during the Millennium Drought, we had areas that were in flood, while the majority of the country was in drought. So when our country is in drought, it means the majority of the country is receiving less than the average rainfall. During the Millennium Drought, the debate was which city was going to run out of water first, and emergency measures were taken. Large infrastructure projects were being constructed. Some of them were quite controversial, but they were done as an emergency response. And inevitably, there was quite a cost involved in that. We are now heading into a drought again. It is, whether it's this year or next year, it is all patterns are showing it's coming. I think we are much better prepared this time around. Quite a bit of investment is going into the country. Quite a few new augmentation plants are being built, either surface water or desalination plants. Quite a few of them are being built. And the country is slowly embracing purified, recycled water. We're not using it in Australia for drinking yet, but it is being used for pretty much everything else. The wonderful thing to see is this time around, as we're preparing for this drought, the investment going on is not controversial. The industry has done wonderful work to engage stakeholders, to educate the stakeholders and the broader population and authorities. Because this time around, the plants are being built, they're not controversial. Communities are behind them. And they're being built with a bit of time. There's a lot of economic efficiencies that are gained through that.
Yeah, and what does, so I guess taking those the millennial drought and what we're experiencing now and planning for now, what do you think's been the big difference? You mentioned perhaps engagement of the stakeholders. What does that mean in practice? How do we do that?
The industry embarked on a campaign to outline the options available. To outline, yes, we're a big country. but we're one of the driest countries in the world. And we cannot be guaranteed where it's going to rain next. We have some dams, but our options to build more dams is pretty much running out or have run out. So therefore, there was a massive education campaign. We call it water literacy, where we really engage with from school groups right up to explain what are the options and why infrastructure like desalination plants, why they are required. Yes, they're expensive. Yes, they use energy, but they also produce a lot of water, and they are truly climate independent. So we use every available bit of water we can get, and ultimately, if they're not available, then we resort to desalination plants. However, it takes many years to build them. You cannot wait till you're in a drought to build them. You need to build them beforehand. And the communities embrace that. It's just wonderful to see the difference between the Millennium Drought and the upcoming drought, or the current impending or pending drought that we're going into, to see the difference in approach. And that I can really congratulate and thank everyone in the water industry, all my colleagues. We've collectively done magnificent work in that space.
Yeah. And you mentioned before, so that's from educating all the way from school up until, I presume, kind of major CEOs of companies, yes, politicians, things like that. It must have been a huge... How did the industry come together to achieve that?
Oh, that's one of the wonderful things of working in the water industry. We collaborate, and at present we are collaborating like never before. We do that through, there are several industry forums and industry associations. If I just had to sort of name them, and they all have different roles, but they are collaborating. It is just wonderful to experience that and to be part of that. There's the Australian Water Association, the sort of big, broad church association that brings it together. The Water Services Association, or WASA, that's all the utilities where they come together. And then the Water Industry Operators Association, WIOA, and ultimately Infrastructure Partnerships Australia, which is really the investment side. They all collaborate. They are being managed by very dedicated and very capable managers and boards. And there's a big focus on, we need to collaborate, we need to work together, we need to be unified in the message we put out, and we need to support each other. And that is what makes it so incredibly exciting working in this industry. And I think it's unique to the water industry across the world, but it is very, very prominent in Australia. And that's what makes it so exciting, and why I'm so privileged to be able to work in this industry.
Yeah, and I imagine, I mean, you guys have got your back up against the wall in terms of the climate in Australia. Like you said, it's probably one of the most challenging places to operate. So I imagine that does pull you guys together.
It does, and we know we need to get this right. Otherwise, the entire nation will suffer. But at the same time, challenges bring opportunity, and we embrace it. And it's what's and we feel we're being backed by the authorities and by the broader population. There's one great thing which the Millennium Drought did. It made everybody aware that water is a scarce resource in Australia, and we need to manage it carefully. And therefore, it's being attended to.
Yeah. Pretty important resource as well.
And what you touched on earlier on is when we, with the education, the water literacy, a lot of that was done purely through engagement campaigns where we take school groups through the desalination plants, the water treatment plants, and the wastewater plants. Because people tend to, I've never seen anybody come off a wastewater plant that's not amazed. Yeah. Because out of sight, out of mind. And when they see how dedicated people are operating a wastewater plant and how much technology goes into operating and providing for the infrastructure to treat wastewater, they are truly, truly amazed. And I have to emphasize that a lot of attention is always paid to above ground plants, desalination plants, water treatment plants, wastewater plants. A lot of our infrastructure is underground. These are sewer mains, water mains, sewer trunks, and a lot of technology is going into maintaining those. They are mostly aging. They very expensive to replace. In some cases, almost impossible to replace because they're underneath cities. Yeah. So a lot of predictive analytics is going into predicting where these are going to fail. There's a lot of technology being developed and implemented in putting robotics down sewers, inspecting them and repairing them. Totally automated robots that go into sewers and reline them with some incredible technology. So it's and that's the sort of almost unseen bit that happens underground, and it ensures that very old infrastructure is or the life of very old infrastructure is extended.
Yeah. And I imagine there's probably not too much pushback in terms of having robots do the jobs in the sewers as compared to humans, right?
No, there's not. But then I must take my hat off. Only 10, 20 years ago, there were people doing that, going down. It's really today. We still have divers going into sewer tanks, but it's only for very, very essential work today. It is increasingly becoming automated. But then simple tasks like inspecting pipes, suspended pipes that are high up in the air or in hazardous area, going into storage tanks, inspecting them on the inside. Today, that's all done by drones. It's fascinating what's being done there. And the analytics predicting where pipes are going to fail, real. I know it's a bit of a cliche today talking about artificial intelligence, but the way we use it in the water industry has just changed our lives, where you can really, really train models to predict where best to replace networks, underground networks, or where to do preventative maintenance or preventative repairs and replacement, because it's the most likely area where a failure will occur. 20, 30 years ago, we measured ourselves by just replacing certain distances per year of pipe. Today, it's specific where it's done. There are technologies based on microphones that get installed that actually listen to creaks and movements in the pipes, and thereby predicting where a likely failure is going to happen, so we can attend to it before it actually happens.
I mean, you mentioned a lot of these pipes and systems are tens of years old, 50 years old, whatever the case may be. I'm sure it varies.
100?
More 100 years old. Yeah. What are the implications of a pipe failing? What?
A lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of disruption. Because not only are households or factories, not only are the services to them interrupted, but it means digging up big pieces of road to get to the infrastructure and then doing emergency repairs. So very, very, very costly. So doing a preemptive, targeted repair or replacement beforehand is really the way to do it. Yeah. And it saves the economy millions by doing it that way. It also means that some of the lining technologies today, where they physically line a pipe in situ, it's a robot going in and then lining it with a modern material. It means you can actually transport more through that pipe because the friction is less. If it's an old brick-lined sewer, for instance, that's very rough. It creates a lot of friction, and then if you line it with a modern plastic liner, you actually get faster flow through it. So you get you expand the capacity of that very aging infrastructure.
Yeah, and expand the lifespan of it, I guess, significantly.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you take a city like Melbourne, where I'm today, there's thousands of kilometers of pipelines, both sewer and main waters underneath the city. Replacing all this is impossible. So your only way forward is to only replace the very, very critical bits and reline the rest.
Yeah. Who's funding all this? Like these projects, maintaining the infrastructure. Is it mainly government? Is it a mixture of public and private? Can you just talk us through how the money flows?
A complex question.
Yeah.
No simple answer to that.
Yeah.
There's a mixture. First of all, the industry is not a singular. There's as much private as there is public. A lot of the farms, mining, there's a lot of private infrastructure in that. And then when it comes to the public side, there's the public utilities. Some are council-owned, some are state government-owned, and that's purely in Australia. But then underneath them, there's thousands of suppliers that supply into them, that provide services from engineering right through to equipment, pumps, chemicals, and construction at the end, and companies like ourselves where we operate these facilities. So the funding differs depending on what it is for. Some are grants, government grants, but the majority of it is ratepayers, councils, state-owned utilities. The operating costs certainly are paid by the ratepayers. So that is a model that has served us well, but it is also a model I think that will be challenged going into the future, because ultimately the climate is changing, and who pays for that? Well, not a simple answer to that. There's a cost of living crisis. We cannot expect ratepayers to pay more. At the same time, governments are challenged in their funding. So it's certainly a topic that's being discussed a lot at present.
And do you think water is correctly priced currently?
I'm biased because I'm in this, but it's too cheap.
Yeah.
It is way too cheap. If I take sort of round numbers, $2 a ton, getting something delivered to your house at pressure, at guaranteed quality for $2 a ton.
It's crazy.
You can't buy anything else for that price. My firm belief is the price will have to go up. It's hard to do that because we have to recognize that it's becoming a cost for households. There's political pressure not to increase cost, and rightfully so. There's many costs that households and businesses, industry are incurring. And it's a mature debate that needs to be had. If we could take food security, we're seeing with the disruption going on in the world, the geopolitical risk there is. Countries are focusing on security, including food security. Oh, country like Australia, you need water to grow crops. We've got incredible agriculture, but ultimately, for security of food, we need water. Yeah. Who pays for that? Can we really expect the user to pay for that? Is it the taxpayer? Well, governments have limited ability to raise taxes. So those are it forms part of a much bigger picture, which I can't. I don't have the final answer to it, but it is a mature debate that we as society need to have. And inevitably, going into the future, it's going to become a more critical debate to be had.
Yeah. And are the price levels currently set by the government in Australia?
I'll answer that carefully. Yes, we have regulation.
Yeah.
We have regulators that set those, and they differ in the states. In Australia, we've got a federal system. So each state have different ways how they set those, and some utilities actually set their own pricing. But there's definitely an expectation of lower cost, lower prices, and inevitably they will need to go up.
And I presume that the implications of having water priced too low means that there's not going to be funds to invest into the infrastructure of the future. Is that the big challenge?
Currently, the utilities are doing an amazing job. They're leveraging their balance sheets. They're doing amazing work to still invest and to pay the operating costs.
Yeah.
But I do not believe that's sustainable at current pricing. How much it needs to go up by is a controversial question, but like I said before, a necessary question that we need to have. They will have to go up at above inflation to allow us to invest into the future. And the sooner we do it, the better, because otherwise it's going to be emergency investments again, and the cost will be higher.
Yeah. What are some of the major investments you think need to be made in the infrastructure over the next sort of 5 to 10 years? What does that look like?
Well, there are three drivers. There's a bit of catch up. During the Millennium Drought, a lot of investment was made into the water industry, and then we had a literal drought in investment. So there's a bit of catchment to do there. Then climate variability, investing to become climate or to mitigate climate variability, to become climate independent almost. There's a lot of investment in that on both the water treatment, the wastewater treatment, and the delivery infrastructure. And then population growth. A country like Australia is growing, our populations are growing, our cities are growing, and the current infrastructure will not meet the future. We're fortunate in Australia that investments are being made. We're seeing an increase in investments to cater for these, but that will continue for at least the next 10 or 15 years, because that's the level of investment that's required. We've also, I think, starting to realize in the water industry that there's a relatively small population like Australia, 26 million people. There's only so much capacity we've got to deliver infrastructure. So that is currently a challenge to coordinate these so that we ensure the supply chain can actually provide. And it's not only water infrastructure that's needed into the future. We're also adapting our energy our energy generation is being transformed, which is necessary. But that too requires a lot of investment and a lot of construction. So that is in competition almost to the required water and wastewater infrastructure. And inevitably, I mentioned before, apart from desalination, our future has to include recycled water. That is something that is still in its sort of infancy in Australia, and it is something that we need to embrace. We're currently using it, but for industrial and agricultural use. I think the time will come into the future where Australia will be faced with we've got a resource here that's not being fully utilized, and we need to fully embrace that.
And what needs to happen? Because you mentioned as well the water that comes from the desalination plants is not quite drinkable yet. Is that right?
Oh no. From the desalination plants, are 100% drinkable.
Okay.
That's pure water.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about from the wastewater plants.
Okay.
Treated water from the wastewater plants. We call it purified recycled water. That has to me. We can utilize that better. We can make more use of purified recycled water, and that's treated wastewater.
Yeah. And what needs to happen to get to the point where that water can be of a standard it can be drinking water?
It is already at the standard. It is probably above the standard.
Really?
It is a mindset. And it's one that in a country as dry as Australia, we are still reluctant to embrace. Elsewhere in the world, recycled water is used for potable. Or people drink treated wastewater. Put it in layman's terms. In Australia, we're not doing it yet, and it is something that we need to consider because it's inevitable. If we want our populations to continue growing, if we want to keep our water bills at where they are, then it is something into the future that we will have to embrace.
Yeah.
It's been done for many years in many countries.
Yeah.
It is not a novel thing. It is not new technology. It is very established, very old technology.
Yeah.
That we just we've embraced the technology in Australia, but we're not using the water yet.
And is that again just another education piece? Yeah.
It is. But I'm sitting here as an engineer, as a service provider, somebody in the industry, somebody who understands the chemistry of the water. You have to accept that it can be controversial, and it's extensive education. You have to really get everybody behind. You do not want to allow that to fall into a political football because it can easily get hijacked.
Yeah.
It can easily make headlines.
Yeah.
This industry is trying to force me to drink something that I shouldn't be drinking. And the reality is there is no such thing as fresh water. Water has been around for millions of years. There's no new water. The water we drink today has been through the kidneys of dinosaurs. It's just nature recycling it. What we're proposing now is that we recycle it using the same technology, the same processes, just accelerated.
Yeah.
In an efficient way, instead of waiting for water to fall down and flow all the way down to the ocean, and then get evaporated and deposited on the land again. We do that where it falls after it's being used, after it's being flushed. We treat it and put it back in a diluted form into the potable system.
And what was it that brought you into this industry?
into the water sector?
Yeah.
Almost by accident. I'm an engineer, and I worked for started working for a company, and I produced wastewater. This company specialized in surface treatment, electroplating, generated a lot of effluent. So it was on the industrial side. And increasingly, there was a demand on the projects to also treat the effluent. So as part of the equipment being supplied, there also needed to be an effluent treatment plant. Company was saying, well, they needed somebody to do that. And it sounded like something interesting. So I jumped onto it, and I was fascinated by it. And so I came in probably not the traditional way into the water industry. Most people come in by working for a utility or coming in through the sort of more on the drinking or wastewater side. I came in through the industrial side. But once I was in there, I was hooked. And it gave me a sense of purpose. It gave me a sense of I was doing something that benefited humanity and benefited the planet. And that still gets me out of bed. That still drives me. And I do feel at night that me and all my colleagues, we played a small part in making the world a better place. And I truly believe that by working in this industry, one day when I hand over to the next generation, fully hand over to them, then I will hand it over in a better spot than when I entered the industry. And that really, really gives me a kick.
Yeah. There can't be many other industries out there that are as important to society and just human well-being as what you do.
You're asking somebody that's clearly biased, but yes, absolutely. the beauty of the industry is it's so broad. From agricultural water to industrial water that we supply and treat to potable water to wastewater, and it covers such a broad spectrum. The technologies used in desalination, be it reverse osmosis or thermal desalination, right through to the chemistry and physical treatment that we use in water treatment, surface water treatment, over to the biological processes we use in wastewater treatment. Fascinating. And the new developments, especially on the wastewater side, and I know I keep coming back to wastewater, but that's the sort of renewable future where we utilize the sludge being generated there to generate power, to generate other beneficial elements. It's just a wonderful industry to work in, and fascinating the developments taking place, and the dedication of so many people. I'm truly honored to be able to play a small part in this massive industry. And to a certain degree, I do think we need to get the message out there a bit more of what we do. But it's in our nature. We don't want to be front page news, because when our industry is front page news, it's because there was a burst somewhere and
something's gone horribly wrong,
flowing down the street or something like that. We avoid that at all cost.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it means we tend to fly under the radar quite a lot. And I emphasize technologies a lot. It is not just technology that makes our industry flow. Those wonderful people that work on the plants, that actually dig up the infrastructure, that construct the infrastructure, the people that engage with the communities, the people who take the phone calls, who attend to those, and then the finances. It's complicated finance when you're dealing with long-term infrastructure. People managing that, people engaging in that, all absolutely wonderful professionals that ultimately make the whole industry work.
Have you found? I'm guessing now, so obviously you'll be able to tell us. I would presume if you were trying to encourage people to work with wastewater 10 years ago, that might have been a sort of maybe a bit of a difficult sell. Whereas today, obviously, with people being so much more educated around the importance of it, have you seen that kind of change in people's approach and the ability to attract good people to work on it?
Absolutely. The thought of taking school children on a tour of a wastewater plant 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we would not have imagined that.
Wow.
Today we do it and they come back, really interested. It's amazing how society has moved. And you touched on the subject of what I've sort of seen over the years in our industry. When I came into the industry, and obviously I'm getting towards the end of my career. In the beginning, it was very male-dominated. Civil engineers dominated the industry. Today, I look at the diversity. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. If you go into an industry event today, gender parity, and all these wonderful young engineers. When I studied engineering, it was pretty much males. Today, we chemical engineers, it's pretty much gender balanced. It's just wonderful to see all these professionals coming into our industry. It's wonderful to see non-engineers coming into our industry doing magnificent work. So it's changed perceptions, and it's also we've embraced professionals that are actually good at selling the message, people that are good at communicating. And they're doing an amazing job transforming our industry, putting a better picture forward of our industry, and portraying just portraying a better image out there. It's diversity is a wonderful thing, and there's more work to be done there. But it's been the most wonderful transformation to witness that coming through our industry. And to be part of that is just a privilege.
And what do you think What do you think some of the benefits of that diversity have been to the kind of industry at large?
Oh, it's diversity of thought, ultimately. Just asking why. Um, if you're all trained in the same way, and you grow up in the same industry, groupthink inevitably happens. You need people that think differently, that ask why. Is there a better way to do it? Is there a different way to do it? Why build something? Can't we negotiate with the regulator? That's ask the question. That's absolutely needed. But then even if I look at our circumstances on sites, on construction sites, I spent a lot of my time in my early years, both in Africa and in the US, on construction sites. And geez, conditions were pretty grim. Today, because we embrace diversity, conditions on site today are wonderful. Just, coming from the water industry, toilet facilities on sites, on construction sites today are beautiful, lovely, clean. You can use them. And that's because we, as an industry, we embrace diversity. It's elevated the industry to the benefit of all by absolutely embracing the diversity of thought, diversity of backgrounds. Something which I'm quite passionate about, and which we of late embracing more in Australia, is Aboriginal culture. People that have been in Australia for 60,000 years. That is just, they've lived in this, the Aboriginal people, the First Nations people in Australia, they've lived in Australia for 60,000 years in the driest continent on earth. They've managed. They have a lot of knowledge. A knowledge that our Western thinking did not necessarily recognize, but we are awakening to that now. And it's being embraced. And it's a fascinating journey to go through, just to see how that was embraced, and how humankind, I mean, it does my mind in, coming from a sort of Western or Western background, where you learn of historic events that happened 200 or 300 years ago. Humans have lived in Australia for 60,000 years, continuous cultures. It's fascinating to embrace that and to learn more from that. Languages that have been spoken for 60,000 years. It's just amazing. So that's the wonderful diversity we have in Australia. We have fellow citizens that have been here for 60,000 years. And then at the same time, somebody like me, who's only been in the country for 15 years, that I'm also allowed to enter this country and to be a proud Australian today. That is what makes this country so absolutely wonderful.
What are some of the learnings that have come out of kind of working with the Aboriginal people and cultures? Is there anything you can share with us?
There's acceptance that the climate changes, that you can't just that you're not guaranteed it's always going to rain in the same spot. They were very good at moving around and adapting to the climate. Things like bushfires in Australia, these are very harsh. The bush in Australia burns, yet Aboriginal people actually managed that. They had controlled fires, which they did in the right circumstances. They actually burnt the bush at certain periods to ensure the fuel load was reduced. So that's knowledge, and a huge responsibility, because if you get it wrong, you can destroy a lot. But they had controlled bushfires, which was an eye opener to me. That was actually practiced by Aboriginal people in a very, very responsible way.
Yeah, it's crazy. I learned just recently. I was in Montana a couple of weeks ago. There are forests there that they actually require fires for the seeds to germinate. And because humans have got involved and actually stop those from occurring, the forests are dying. Yes. And this is, like you say, it's that ancient wisdom and knowledge.
Yep, it's definitely not unique to Australia. There's knowledge out there, and we tend to conveniently overlook it. If we go searching, there's a lot to be learned. A lot of in the water industry, there's one aspect of it that I've not touched on, and that's stormwater. For many years, conventional thinking was just get rid of stormwater, just build a canal and get rid of it. Today, we've realized that was a mistake. A lot of canals that were built in the 50s, 60s, 40s, today are being dug up, and we restoring the original flow. We're recreating wetlands because, surprise, surprise, wetlands actually slow down the release of water, which means you don't get floods. It restores, it lowers the temperature, the ambient temperature around there, which is good for humans. Green space is good for humans and for wildlife, specifically bird life. So it's actually probably something wonderful to witness, that we admit we made mistakes, and we're now prepared to invest the money to dig up some of those old canals and restore the original vegetation that existed.
You've spoken so eloquently about the industry and the different factors that impact it. What role do you and Trility hope to play in this over the next, I don't know, let's say sort of 5 to 10 years? I know it's crazy to think about planning 5-10 years ahead, but what role do you hope to play in the continued development of the industry?
Well, it's we've been a player in this industry, and we wish to continue with that. But Trinity continues to diversify. Not only is the climate changing, but the industry is changing as well. The services required are changing, and our population's changing. One of the diversifications, just as an example, that we've embraced today, Trility is a registered training organization, something that took quite a bit to achieve, to get all the accreditations to become a registered training organization in Australia. But we did that mainly with our aging workforce, to keep our operators engaged, because there comes a time where operators, and I have to pay my respect to all operators. These are the people who get phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Eve, and they get up and they attend to what needs to be attended to. But there comes an age where people say, well, I don't want to be on call anymore. Yet they've got incredible knowledge. So by becoming a training organization, we continue to engage or to maintain the engagement of our aging workforce, and because they are very, very willing to install their knowledge onto the next generation. So that's a way of engaging our mature workers to by becoming trainers. Therefore, they continue to be employed by the company, and they get given an opportunity to give their knowledge back. I spoke about the advances in digital forecasting. That is another diversification, something we've been doing for years inside the company to enhance the efficiency of our treatment plants, our predictive analytics, where we just go through the data, 10 years of data of a treatment plant, and you get to the point where you can really predict what's going to fail, or where you can predict what a water body is going to do with the season. When you overlay the seasons on top of it, you become very good at predicting what a river or a water body is going to do, how it's going to behave, depending on the weather patterns. So 2-3 months ahead, you can predict how the water is going to change. We're now offering that as a service to the wider industry. However, ultimately, Australia's only got 26 million people. There's only so much growth we can achieve in Australia. We've made the step to expand into New Zealand. We've been successful at that. Obviously, there's learnings. It's a different country. Don't tell the Kiwis that, but
They're a bit,
it is a
different,
different country. No, there's always a friendly banter between Australia and New Zealand. So we've successfully expanded into New Zealand. We will continue with that. The Pacific is next. We will expand into that, and then Southeast Asia is the next target where we absolutely need to expand into. Whenever you go into a new country, there are different ways of doing things. You have to learn. You have to take small steps to get learnings, and you have to embrace and employ local people, empower them to grow the local business. You do not send people from your original country or expanding into a new country by using expats is not the way to go. It's not the Trility way. We employ local, train up local, and then let the local people in country grow the business. So that is our future. Is the further geographic expansion and further diversification.
Yeah. And what is it at the heart of Trility that allows you guys to be sort of successful across all these different areas? What is it that's
people, and people? Yeah. Ultimately, we are a people company. It's we can talk a lot about technologies and know-how, but ultimately, it's the people and the culture that goes with that. The difference that someone makes when they when there's a call at night and the person gets up, how you react during a disruption. That's what sets companies like ours apart, and that's all down to the people. We so often we end up in a position where there's a flood or a fire or whatever somewhere in a remote region of Australia, and there's 2 or 3 operators there all by themselves, and we have to remotely manage them. And how people in other areas in the offices respond by remotely supporting those in the field, and how those in the field respond. That's what sets the company apart, and that's what makes Trility who we are.
How do you, as the CEO, build that culture?
It's continuous work. It doesn't happen by itself. And whenever you think I've got culture in hand, then you get a surprise. So it's continuous work, but it's as much as leading by example than it is anything else. And it's a journey that you have to take people on, and ultimately it comes down to trusting people, empowering people, coaching people, and allowing them to do what they do well, and not interfering.
What do you think, as we kind of move towards the end of the conversation here? What's something that kind of keeps you up at night? What's the big sort of roadblock or challenge that you foresee?
We work in a hazardous environment. People deal with hazardous chemicals. We have lone workers out on site. So it's always the safety of people that keeps me awake at night. It's sometimes our dedication gets in the way. When there's a phone call at night, because all our treatment plants run automated at night, or most of them. But when there's a disruption, the system phones the duty operator, and people are so dedicated. They jump in the car and they race out. And driving at night in Australia is hazardous. There's wildlife on the roads. It's you've got somebody going out to a facility, wherever it is, in the darkness. So we instill on people, whoa, take a deep breath, have a look. If there's a storage reservoir full of water and the town's not going to run out of water, attend to it in the morning. But people are so dedicated. It's in their nature to jump in their vehicle and race out. That's the kind of hazards where it's hard to manage, but it's absolutely necessary. And yes, we're embracing technology. We've got pendants on people. We can track where every person is, or every vehicle is. at any time to try and safeguard that. But ultimately, the well-being of our staff is what keeps me up at night. And it's not just our staff, but it's everybody within our sphere of influence. And when it comes to staff, it's complacency is a danger. When you're doing something that you've always done, you think you know hazardous substances like chlorine, fluoride. You've done it many times. It's just that one day when you don't pay enough attention. And then, if I look at the statistics in our company, the biggest hazard we have is driving. And we all jump in a car. You jump with your family, whether it's in private life or in your work life. You jump in the car and off you go. Yet, that's where we have most of our hazards, vehicle incidents. Jeez, and it's something we have to do. Yes, we can go on defensive driver training and all of that, but to get it into your mind that driving is a hazard, you need to be in the right mind frame. You need to really think about what you're going to do, and you need to concentrate. That is something all of us need to continuously focus on. We get as many injuries in the office as we get on the sites. And my take on that is because we focus so much on the sites.
Yeah.
We do assessments of everything we're going to do. Yet in the office, you jump up and off you go, and there you injure your foot, or you bump your head, or you cut your finger, or whatever. Crossing the road is a hazard. You need to focus. And that's the messages I try and give staff and everyone I can influence all the time. Safety is something you need to focus on every day.
So we have a podcast tradition that we like to end on. We like to ask each guest the same two questions. We get some very different answers. It's very interesting. So the first one is, what's one thing you've changed your mind about recently, and why?
Probably quite a few, because life is a journey of learning. But I'll start off by saying that I used to believe complacency is a major risk. Today, I believe it's the risk to watch out for. And it's in your private life as much as it is in business, as much as it is globally. It was a time where I believed I understood global events. I've changed my mind on that because, geez, it's heartbreaking to see what's happening in North Africa and in the Middle East and Ukraine. And it's sad to see that common sense is not prevailing. I'm an eternal optimist, but I've definitely changed my mind that whenever you think things are going smoothly, be careful.
Yeah. That's the eye of the storm you're in. Yeah. And on the flip side to that, what's one thing you've not changed your mind about? A belief that you hold dear.
A belief. This is something I regularly remind myself, but also my fellow managers, and they'll smile when they hear this, or they might even burst out laughing. But I constantly remind myself and the rest of the management team that the jobs we do, if they were easy, we would not be in these roles. We were appointed to these roles because they're difficult, because they are challenging days. And we applied for these roles because they would be challenging. So whenever you're having a day where you think, geez, not sure how am I going to get, what are we going to do now? I have no idea what to do. Then you remind yourself, that's why you're in this role. That's why you applied for it. That's why the shareholders gave you this role. It's your job to do the difficult things, to stand up and be the person to say, we did something wrong. We're sorry. We're going to do something different. That's your job. And that's what makes your job exciting. But don't ever forget that that's why you're in this role.
And it's a privilege, right? I mean, it's hard to sometimes to think of it that way, but it's a privilege to be in an environment that challenges you and allows you to grow.
Absolutely. Makes it exciting. And it's not it's a message that, you give it to yourself in 1 second and then the rest of the day falls in place again. but occasionally just remind yourself that, yes,
you're very lucky.
It's not always going to be smooth sailing. You learn as much through the bad times as through the good times. And that's why you're in this job. So that's what makes it exciting. And a lot of people depend on you. And that is a huge responsibility that you have. And you always need to, or you need to never forget that.
Francois, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today. I've learned a lot. And yeah, I wish you the best with everything you're doing. It's very important. So thank you.
Thank you. And likewise, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a delight.